What is up, and welcome back to 24 Minutes of A24, the podcast that takes a look at the A24 library 24 minutes at a time. I am Ethan Simi.
And I've been Lawhorn. This week on the pod, we are knocking on doors and ending up in a weird guy's basement as we talk about the latest A24 movie, Heretic.
Two young religious women are drawn into a game of cat and mouse in the house of a strange man. This is the brand new horror thriller religious film, flick, moving picture from A24. Obviously came out in 2024. It is directed by Brian Woods and Scott Beck, I believe. And the movie is 1 hour and 51 minutes long, stars Hugh Grant, Sophie Thatcher, and Chloe East. Ben, how are you? What's up?
And a little cameo from Topher Grace. Be a little bit of Topher Grace in there.
In this movie?
He's the elder. He's the one that comes to the door.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, it's been a while since I've seen this film.
Yeah.
Not to toot my own horn, but I was at the world premiere of Heretic at TIFF, which was
indeed
pretty exciting. That was really fun because Hugh Grant was there, Sophie Thatcher was there, and Chloe East. They did a Q&A afterwards, and that was really fun time. But yeah, Topher Grace, Elder Kennedy, man, put Topher Grace in more movies. That's where I'm at now.
Let's make it happen. I think he's solid. I thought it took me a second, but I had that like Leo meme when I was in the theater. I was like, oh shit, it's Topher Grace. Like he doesn't really look like him, but he kind of does. But
that's the guy.
Yeah, to answer your question, I'm good. I'm very excited to talk about this movie for a lot of reasons. Yeah, this is going to be a fun conversation.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a good episode talking about the newest A24 movie, Heretic. But before we dive into the film, we do have some very slight news, I think. Housekeeping, you could classify it as housekeeping. It is not necessarily pertaining to A24 films in general, but it is pertaining to this pod. After much discussion, after much thought, much processing, and much thinking about this, beginning after next week, we are going to be taking an award season break, a holiday break. We will no longer be turning into 24 minutes of the Oscars. We will not be covering the 2025 Academy Awards. Life happens, holidays happens. You know, the Movie Draft podcast is happening. And we just feel like it is the right time to step away for a few months while the award season is transpiring, and hopefully come back when life calms down a bit.
Yeah, I think it's the right choice to make for sure. It'd be good to spend more time with our families and stuff over the holidays. And then, you know, if you still want to hear our thoughts on the Oscars, I'm sure Twitter will have those. So feel free to like follow us on there. I don't think we'll be able to keep our thoughts to ourselves. So but it'll just be good. This is just a temporary thing, but we're just going to take a little time off and then we'll be back in the springtime.
Yeah, I will say, I think in our 172 episodes, I think we've only ever missed like 2 weeks, which is like pretty phenomenal. I feel like we should congratulate ourselves for that.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. But your point is valid, and I hope people hear it. Like we really went kind of back and forth on this. Like for a while, this wasn't like great, let's do it. It's just like, I don't know, man. Like this pod has been going on now for so long, but we, again, as we say every episode, we appreciate everyone's support and especially their support in this. So we'll still be around. And like I said, we'll be back.
Absolutely. Yes. It is just a short break for 24 minutes of A24. I will give a shameless plug and say, if you are looking for specifically my awards content coverage, I do plan to cover it over on my YouTube channel. Movies Are So Back. I'll be making movie reviews, best picture power rankings, the whole shebang for the Academy Awards, and I'll probably do my coverage over there. So if that is appealing to you or interesting to you, go give my channel a subscribe.
Do it.
But yeah, that's where I'll be during this award season. Okay, now that we've said the sad news, let's talk about what is a pretty fun movie. I got to be honest. Heretic. Ben, I do want to start with you. You've seen this movie a lot more recently than I have. I did not rewatch it in preparation for this show.
Gotcha.
I saw it way back in September at TIFF. I had a great time with it. Thought it was a hoot and hollering good religious horror movie. But this is a movie that is, near and dear to your heart because it's kind of Mormon over themes here. Yeah,
for sure. This this movie really hit close to home. It's kind of interesting to do this so close to We Live in Time. Just like all these movies that keep playing like directly to me. But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. I'm aware that I don't know that I can be objective about this because I did serve a Mormon mission. I was raised Mormon.
Yeah.
I'm no longer in that religion or any religion at all, but I did serve a Mormon mission. So a lot of this stuff really rang true for me. Even to the point that at one point I met someone that in a not so aggressive way told me a lot of the stuff that Hugh Grant talks about in this movie.
Oh.
I had like a 3-hour conversation with someone who told me about like the true history of the Mormon church and all that kind of stuff. And I was just like,
did that person impersonate Jar Jar Binks? That's what I want to know.
No, that's what was missing for sure. That's what we
was
needed.
Like missing key element.
Yeah, that would have solved it. But I feel like the Eric Wareheim gif of just like the mind exploding, like that's what my brain was doing when this all happened. It's just like, wait, what's going on? So I very much related to that throughout this film, although I don't know that it hit the women in this movie as much as it hit me. But I just, again, I can't necessarily be objective. I'm too close to this stuff. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was told really well. I thought some of the decisions that they made in the storytelling were very interesting. I love some of the stuff that we'll go over in true cinema, like the Monopoly analogy, all that kind of stuff. I thought that was all like very, very interesting, and well researched. So yeah, I like this movie. I thought Hugh Grant was just fantastic. Like, not to say that no one else could have done this, but like they had to bring the energy that he brought to this and like the force that he brought to it. And I thought he just did an amazing job in this movie. He just played this role extremely well. Both of the sister missionaries I thought were great as well. I mean, I liked them both, but Chloe East in this movie, she plays the more quote unquote traditional Mormon missionary, and some of the stuff was just hilarious that she was doing in here. And I feel like I know people like that. Like, you could have someone that's like about to kill you and you'd still like apologize for taking up their time or something, like that rang very true. So some of this stuff was just like very, very funny to me. But I thought, I love the cinematography. I thought it was very well done. And I don't know, I had a good time, if that's the right word, I don't know, but I enjoyed this film. But once again, I understand that I'm like way too close to this. So I don't know that, like, I'm curious how someone who wasn't around the Mormon religion saw this movie.
Yeah. I mean, I had a really good time watching this movie. I think like this is a perfectly good religious horror movie. Like, I don't think it is necessarily super great. I think it has really good moments. I think it loses its footing in like the final 20 minutes and gets a little too carried away with itself, as per I think more recent A24 horror movies, which is a little unfair to some of those. But I mean, I think the religious aspects are really interesting to me because, like you said, I'm not this, as close to you on this kind of topic. I didn't grow up in the Mormon church. I did grow up like in a church, and I do have, my own religious trauma and my own religious history that I don't, practice or prescribe to anymore. But I wonder if seeing it from a non Mormon perspective, like I wonder if I was just much more entertained by the movie, right? Like, I didn't I didn't really squeeze a whole lot out of it. I did love kind of where this movie goes, talking about the history of religion and how it is really just one big kind of commercial monopoly on trying to control people. And I think that's a very wise and smart way to put that across. Outside of that, I was like, Hugh Grant, pretty good actor, right? Like, that's kind of like what my takeaway was. So I didn't really like personally connect to like a whole ton of stuff. So yeah, I think that is fascinating. You mentioned last week, right? Like, you entered some kind of contest to go to a screening in Salt Lake?
I did, yeah. They held one here that was hosted by two Whitneys of reality TV fame, one of Real Housewives of Salt Lake and one of the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
Is it wrong that when you said that, I'm really sorry to cut you off, but I will lose my train of thought. Is it wrong when you said two Whitneys of reality TV fame? My mind was like, oh, Whitney from The Curse, played by Emma Stone. She's a reality TV star.
It is wrong. That's 100% wrong.
That is where I'm at right now.
That's amazing. You could hold a gun to my head and give me 100 guesses. I would not have remembered that was her character name. I think that's amazing.
Whitney and Asher. Come on, guy.
Asher, maybe I would have pulled out, but Whitney, I had
Dougie.
no clue.
Wow. Okay. I'm sorry to derail you, but I was like really impressed with myself.
They did host it at the theater that I did see this at. We went on a Saturday at like 5:00, and honestly, it was pretty sold out as far as the theater. But again, that's where I think for those who don't know, I live in Utah. It's like the land of Mormons. So I wonder how much of that was people wanting to go see their religion on screen, basically, whether it's reflected nicely or not. But yeah, there's a lot of people, but I also don't normally go to movies on a Saturday night because I want to avoid the crowd. So, but this one just kind of worked out this way. And for the most part, it was a great viewing until the very end. And I will save that till we get into true cinema. But yeah, like I think I verbally said, you've got to be fucking kidding me. But I'll give the context for that when we get to the true cinema.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. We might be aligned on some of that thinking. I think what is so interesting about this movie is that it is being kind of widely like recognized for Hugh Grant's performance and like, oh wow, why are we not letting him play more villains or like do cool monologues? And I totally agree with that, and I'm in on that. Without Hugh Grant's monologue, which of course we will kind of tackle in true cinema, but I think it is worth bringing up now in the more general thoughts. I don't know if this movie is like even good, to be honest with you.
Oh, interesting.
Like I without Hugh Grant delivering what he does, this is like a pretty B horror movie to me, which I think is really interesting. Like I just don't know if we get enough, and what we do get is kind of mired in these twists and turns that are trying to take advantage, I guess, of these religious themes that are playing through. And I don't know. Like I don't know if it overall works without Hugh Grant.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know.
I hear what you're saying, but that's also just like a big part of the movie to say, like, if it's not there, does it work?
Sure.
You know, it's just kind of like, yeah, but if it's not there, it's a totally different movie. So like maybe it doesn't work, but I think it does work because of that. My first thought was like, does Glenn Ross work without Alec Baldwin? Like, I don't know. Like, it's just a different movie. It's not necessarily bad, but it's just like, you need that always be closing monologue from Baldwin to like really drive home Glenn Ross. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting idea for sure.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think you're totally right. Yeah, I think Heretic is like a pretty good movie. I'd be curious. Maybe we can talk at the very end of like where it ranks within, if you have like, a 2024 ranking or an A24 ranking or where that might fall in line. Is there anything else broad you want to talk about before we dive into this movie?
No, I don't think anything in particular. I know we're going to go through a lot of the true cinema, but yeah, just that this was, man, really felt close to home here. So it was an interesting watch, to say the least.
So when you say that, did they like portray like a mission accurately? Is that what you is that like what you connected to, or did you notice like some discrepancies or something?
I mean, there were some discrepancies for sure throughout the movie where it's just like, oh, they wouldn't do that. Like quite literally, they never would have gone in the house because it is a rule for sister missionaries that another woman has to be present. So they wouldn't have even gone in to be like, all right, we'll wait till she comes in. Like they would have stood at the door until they saw the wife. But that, like, obviously the movie's just over then, it's like that you can't do that, and then like there's other parts where, one of the characters talks about like, I want to come back as, a butterfly. It's like, they don't believe in that kind of reincarnation stuff. Like that's not a thing that anyone would say that was like a real believer, but it's like minor nitpicky stuff where it's just like, it didn't ruin the movie for me. It just was like, oh yeah, that's like, that wouldn't have happened, but it is what it is. But for me, it was just kind of I had the opposite reaction or the opposite situation for me where the place I served was like 5 degrees south of the equator. So I was just like in 100-degree weather all the time.
Oh, wow.
So it was the opposite of like rain all the time where we were just like fucking hot nonstop, So I didn't have that same kind of situation that they had to go through, but there was just still a lot, like, especially again with like someone educating me on the true background of it, that just felt very familiar.
Yeah. I think you should take to Twitter and call this movie out, say how
Let's
inaccurate
do
it
it.
is.
Yeah.
They
What
would
the
never
hell?
say that about butterflies. What
They
the
would
hell,
never
guys?
do that. Are you kidding me?
Nobody's seen this movie. It's inaccurate. Yeah, Gladiator 2 style for sure. Okay, let's talk about true cinema here for the movie, and we can kind of walk through the film as we do it. All right, we will start with the condom bench conversation. I thought this was a ridiculously funny way to open up this movie of the sisters sitting on a bench with a huge ad for condoms talking about if I remember correctly, it was like basically ways around having sexual intercourse, right? It was like the Mormon's way of like figuring out how to be physically intimate with somebody.
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest, it happened so early in the movie and I got caught up in everything else. I don't remember. I just remember the bench saying like size doesn't matter or something like that, with the condom thing. But again, this was another like nitpicky thing where it's like, man, I just don't know that they would be talking about this at all. But like, whatever. It's an interesting way to start the movie. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I do think it's like a funny way to start the movie for sure. And I remember watching this thinking that I really enjoyed the opening credits. I thought like A24 used to do really cool opening credits, right? They used to like totally make that a thing, and it's not so much a thing anymore in their films. And then this one definitely took advantage of that. I think it's a great hook for this kind of a movie to like get you laughing, get you invested in these sisters, Paxton and Barnes, and just kind of like try to figure out where they're going, what's happening, what they care about. Then we get a little bit of a montage of them walking around the city. We get some of this in the trailer as well, of them like asking, if people believe in God or if they, know anything about the Mormon church. A necessary part of the movie for sure to like kind of get our footing.
Yeah, it's like like you said, it's a bit of a montage of just like how difficult it can be to do this kind of stuff. I served in 2 places because I got sick. So again, like we're going to relate a lot of this to myself because that's like all I can do. But I served in Brazil and they are very religious there. And you could just go to people like, hey, do you want to talk about Jesus? And they're like, yeah, come on in. Like it was that simple. They were just like, yeah, they're very religious, And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, I finished my mission in Alabama, where they're also very religious, but not super open to talking about it. Like they're like, oh no, you're in a cult, which is like, fair to them, whatever. But there are plenty of places like this. I don't remember where this is supposed to be exactly, but there are a lot of places where like people just don't talk about religion, and you could go all 2 years without really like talking to anybody about the discussion. So I think it's meant to show that like once they get someone like Mr. Reed who's like, yeah, I'd love to talk, it's like, great, we're going to take this chance to do it because it's so hard to get anyone else to talk to us, as we see through the montage. So for me, it set that up perfectly, like why they would try so hard to get into his house then, like even if it broke some rules or whatever.
Yeah. I just want to mention, because I just looked it up to figure out where this takes place. It doesn't specifically say, but it does look like this movie's made over $25 million at the box office on a budget of less than 10.
Nice.
Pretty impressive. Pretty interesting. I mean, great business for A24. There is no doubt about that.
Yeah, it looks like principal photography took place in Vancouver.
Okay.
So that's where, I assumed it was like Canada, but I thought maybe it could have been, who knows, but
yeah,
he does give the old a boot and oot. So I guess that makes sense that it was in Canada.
Actually Canada. Look at that. Okay. We're going to jump to them showing up to Mr. Reed's house. Of course, Mr. Reed is played by Hugh Grant. This is kind of what you mentioned. They get to the door and he's like, my wife is just in the other room. She's baking a blueberry pie. Why don't you guys come in and wait for her? They say yes. Big no. They would have never done that. Historically accurate, down the drain. But they go in, and of course, the kind of famed first twist of this movie is that there's in fact no blueberry pie. There is no wife. It is just a blueberry pie scented candle that he has been burning in his home. The reason that I bring this up outside of just the fact that it's a scene is because A24 did host some screenings in which during this scene the theater smelled like blueberry pie. Neither of us went to those screenings, but they sound cool. Sounds like a
awesome.
great time. Yeah,
I think it would have been great. That's the real 4D experience right there. So that would have been sweet for sure.
I think they got to do that with more stuff, like the next movie that has a food scene in it. I think we just got to be pumping that scent in the theater.
Yeah, if it's the right scene, then that would be wonderful.
We gotta go Wonka style. Get the whole theater smell like chocolate.
Hey, yeah, don't threaten me with a good time.
That is what it will get me on Team Wonka. If we could just get the whole place smelling like chocolate.
I love it.
Yeah, that'd be the real deal. Okay. Did this twist work for you? The blueberry pie scented candle. I don't know if it was really like a huge twist. I feel like we see it in the trailer.
I was gonna say, like, I think we saw it in the trailer, so it wasn't like a huge
Yeah.
surprise. Which is, I mean, who am I to question the people that put trailers together? But like, it feels like it could have been something that we didn't need to know going into the
Yeah.
movie. Like, it could have been a good reveal. But it does. I think it's effective in the sense that like it sets off the alarm signals for Sister Barnes. I think is the one who notices it and then starts clocking everything of like, wait, why? Like, yeah, we still haven't met her, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So it worked in that sense.
So this takes a long time for them to kind of get this reveal. They're waiting
Mhm.
for Hugh Grant's wife for a really long time, and it's really interesting because Hugh Grant busts out his Bible and is like, "I've done some reading of my own, and like
Yeah.
this is not the first time I've talked to some sisters, and this is what I think about religion," and really kind of pushes back on them and like quizzes them, tests them, and figures out where they stand kind of on their
Mhm.
religion. And I think it's interesting from that perspective because it's definitely him like sussing them out of like, okay, how hard is this going to be to kind
Yeah.
of kidnap them and put them in my dungeon? Which
Yeah.
is really interesting. I think it's smartly done, like to make this scene last so long.
Yeah, it works effectively. Like he comes out, he's like, "Oh, my wife's just really shy, so she'll be out here shortly," So buys himself some more time. But yeah, we get this back and forth between them where they will ask him questions like, "Oh, so when is your wife? Is she coming out? Like, where's the pie? Whatever." Then he's like, "Let me ask you something." He doesn't answer. He just
Yeah.
like follows back with a question and then asks them about the religion and what they believe and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm with you. Like this was very effective. I think it worked really well. And again, like just brought the stress levels up even more for them to the point like when they are trying to leave, it's like we got to get the fuck out of here.
Oh yeah, I think it instantly kind of cranks it into another gear. And the next thing that happens is the sisters try to give an Irish goodbye, essentially, and they're like, "We got to get out of here." The door is locked, really firmly locked, and they are not going anywhere. And then they try to do this kind of fake phone call thing where basically they're like, "Uh-oh, our elder called us. We need to go back to the church." Now, at this point in time, do you remember what Mr. Reed says to them of like, "Hey, I know that that's a fake phone call," because I know at some point in the movie it is revealed like that is why his house is lined with
Yeah.
like lead paint or something, is so that way nobody can have any incoming phone calls.
Yeah, exactly. Like he plays along with it when they make the pit like, "Oh, I'm getting a call. Like, what do you need us at the church?" Okay.
Yeah,
And they're like, "Okay, well, if you have to go, whatever." But later on, he's like, "Well, I know that's not true because when you guys walked in, I told you that there's metal in my walls and ceiling, and you guys were okay with that. So I knew you wouldn't be getting a phone call." Which, like for me, they were really cool about it. Like, yeah, sure, whatever, metal. I'm like, why would you have?
Why would
metal
you
in your
ever be
walls and
okay with
ceiling?
that?
Like, that's
Yeah.
crazy to me. But what do you do in that situation? I have no idea. But yeah, that's when he calls them out. I think it's later when they're in the study, but he calls them out just like there was no phone call. I know there was no phone call because like it literally can't happen.
Yeah.
And then like the door lock being on a timer because they're asking him if he can unlock it. And he's like, "Oh no, sorry, I have it on a timer. There's no way to reset it until the morning." That's all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's some pretty good early reveals, I feel like, in this
Yeah.
movie. He takes the girls into the study. This is where we get the what I think is the most effective part of this movie and the best, the most well written, the deepest, the most interesting. This is where we kind of get the Monopoly monologue from Hugh Grant and his Jar Jar Binks impression, which
Yeah.
I just like give him credit. He went full send on this whole scene, dude.
Do you think Hugh Grant has seen episode 1? Like, does he know what Jar Jar is?
Here's the thing. He either watches episode 1 like all the time as a comfort movie, or he's never seen it in his life and he never will. There is no in between for this guy.
Yeah, it's a commending his acting here where I couldn't tell if he had never heard Jar Jar Binks before or if he did a really good job of playing someone who had never heard Jar Jar Binks before. Because like his impression isn't great by any means, but you kind of see what he's going for, and I think it works well. But this scene, yeah, like you said, I agree with you. This is the most effective, well written, powerful scene of the movie as he gives this monologue explaining why, talking about the three core religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam,
Yep.
and how those get kind of translated to the board game world of Monopoly, like the new Monopoly, and I forget what the old game was called, but
Yeah.
and why like Judaism / the first version of Monopoly didn't take off, but Christianity has, even though it wasn't the first religion. So super great scene.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me because he basically cements that all religions are adaptations of one another, and they all boil down throughout hundreds and thousands of years to kind of the key, like the big ones, right? You've got Christianity, Mormonism, Judaism, those types of things. I think this is a really, really smart way to look at a really interesting topic. And I think from here, unfortunately for me, the script is like super downhill after this. It's really plain, falls pretty flat. There's a lot of decisions that happen after this that are just shock value driven for sure. Also, Barnes rebels and basically like refutes some of his claims. And he's like, doesn't matter. This is what it is. Yeah. And then you need to pick between these two doors. Are you going to go through a belief door, and then there's another door? And basically, like, what are you personally going to align with? And it's interesting because through all of this, we kind of get these really smartly placed quick cuts to both the sisters.
Yeah.
And how they're kind of like eyeing to one another. They're motioning to one another. They're trying to figure out through a secret language of like, how are we going to get out of this situation? And the longer that Hugh Grant talks, the more menacing he becomes. And like, quite honestly, the more mesmerizing he gets. And I would like listen to that 10 times over. I remember seeing this for the first time. Of course, when you go into an A24 movie, at least for me, and I'm sure you're the same, I'm like, okay, what merch are they going to make out of this movie? Like, if it's a brand new movie, I'm like, okay, what merch are they going to make out of it? Like, The Brutalist, I'm like, okay, what the fuck are you gonna do? Like, you're gonna make a mug, you're gonna make a t-shirt, you're gonna make like a little Brutalist action figure. Where are we going with this? Because they have to merch their stuff. That's kind of what they're known for. When I saw Heretic, and specifically at this scene, I was like, this is a prime time to make a Heretic themed Monopoly board game. Like, make it. Like, this is the it moment of the movie. Of course, they only made the blueberry pie candle. Little unfortunate for me.
And they also, I believe, made the Book of Mormon as like a holder. Like you could stash your weed in and stuff like that.
That's pretty cool.
Something I'm pretty interested in. Here's a random question for you now that you bring that up.
Of course.
What if instead of a Heretic Monopoly, it was an A24 Monopoly?
Yeah. As I said that, I thought an A24 Monopoly.
Well, here's my question for you is what's Park
Boardwalk?
Place? Yeah. And what's Boardwalk? Like, what movies fall into that? What do you think?
Moonlight has to be one of them. Moonlight has to be Park Place. It's the only 24 movie that's ever won Best Picture.
That's true. That's a good point. And then I feel like, I don't know, for me, it's Hereditary. Falls into the other one because it's like, it falls into the directorial debuts. It falls into A24 horror, which they've become known for. I mean, look at the movie we're talking about. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like it's got the most recognition, I guess, when I'd be curious, like if you polled 100 people and said, name 3 A24 movies, like who wouldn't come up with Hereditary? But I don't know. Yeah, it'd be kind of interesting.
That's totally fair. I think that is really an interesting question. I'm trying to figure out if Slice would somehow work its way into that Boardwalk slot.
Oh, that's like Mediterranean Ave. That's like the first movie that's on there. Or that's some like poor community chest card where like, you have to watch Slice, pay $10, like that's what that would be for sure.
Yeah.
I want to game this out though. I want to think of like, what are all the movies and where would they go? That'd be super fun.
Yeah. Well, this is very interesting now that you bring this up, because I am going to pull up my A24 ranked list here. And I'm just trying to where does Civil War fall? Like that's got to be one of the greens, like one of the green things.
Oh, one of the greens.
I gotta pull up a Monopoly board. That's my problem.
Well, green's
Monopoly
on the same side as like Boardwalk
game.
and Park Place. I was gonna put it in like the orange, maybe the red, like kind of the other opposite corner.
Oh, okay, so you're looking at like
begin.
a St. James Place.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay. The New York Ave, Tennessee Ave. Yeah, that's pretty good. You know, I'm always on the edge. I feel like the orange and really the pink, that whole row. I'm just not. I'm not a fan. You know,
Interesting. Yeah,
I go for the red and the yellow. That's my Monopoly strategy.
it's a good one.
I
I
try
like it.
to get there. I mean, what would be the railroads? You got to have 4 railroads.
4 railroads.
You got to think of 4 A24 movies that are somehow thematically or visually connected to be the railroads.
Dang. I guess we're.
It's a really hard on the spot question.
It is. I was like, man, we're one away from just doing Ari Aster for all the railroads. Like pull off Hereditary and just like make him all the railroads. I don't know that anyone else has directed 4 movies for A24.
Oof.
Or you just do like 4 directors, you know, maybe just name the railroads after them.
Oh, you think
Could be
like you
interesting.
do? What do? You do Ari Aster,
Garland.
Alex Garland. You could do Sean Baker, but then you only got 2. You got Florida Project, Red Rocket.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I almost want to throw in Sofia Coppola because she was pretty early on. Bling Ring is like, what, their 5th movie? And then Priscilla, like, it's only 2, but she's been around from the beginning.
That's true. That's true. We got to get under the Silver Lake on this board somewhere.
I was just going to say, where does Spring Breakers go?
Oh, I'll tell you where Spring Breakers goes. It goes in the brown.
No. No way.
No, Spring Breakers, that'd probably be your Virginia Ave.
I can
States
see that.
Ave. You know, you're looking at the pink. Third tier.
Yeah, I like it.
I think we need to dedicate an entire episode when we come back to
You guys,
giving out an A24
this is what we're going to do with our 3
Monopoly
months while
board.
we're gone, is we're going to design an A24 Monopoly board. We'll be
This is
back.
brilliant. This is genius. I don't know why they didn't do this for this movie.
Yeah.
All right. The sisters enter the belief door. And this is where things get pretty dark. They get pretty weird. Hugh Grant introduces who he claims is a living prophet of God. It is a woman who is dead and then comes back to life and is resurrected. Basically, she eats a poison pie, she dies, and then she is resurrected. Of course, keeping with the religious themes at play and Hugh Grant's idea of how constructed religion controls us and our beliefs.
Yes, and he's trying to do this to almost analyze their reactions. Like, what is it like to see someone come back to life? Like, isn't that amazing? Tell me what you're feeling right now. What are you thinking about this? It's an interesting idea. And yeah, I don't know. It's kind of interesting to see how it plays out in the sense of like Paxton calling out what is actually happening later on.
Yeah. Here's what you do. Yorgos Lanthimos. Here's your railroads. I got them.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yorgos Lanthimos, because you got 2, right? You got Killing of a Sacred Deer, you got The Lobster.
Okay.
You do Ty West. You've got X Pearl Maxine.
Okay.
Sean Baker, you've got 2. You got Florida Project, Red Rocket. And then you go the Daniels. Because you've got Swiss Army Man and Everything Everywhere all at once. And you know what? Actually, you take out Ty West and you put in the Safdies. You go with 4 directors or sets of directors that all have 2 movies under the A24 banner.
Okay. I can see that.
Good times on good jumps.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, though, like Everything Everywhere should probably be Boardwalk because, like, that's in theory their most successful movie. You know
It's
what I mean?
true.
Like in a way, you can look at it as their most successful film they've ever had. But
That's true.
I still stand by Hereditary.
Yeah, I stand by that as well. Good call. Yeah, this is a great scene. I still like. I really admire the movie up until here because Hugh Grant is still doing like what he was doing. He continues to bring that energy.
Yeah.
And through this idea of like, look what I can do, look what man can do. And it's not exclusive to religion or God. This is now where things, in my opinion, take off a little bit, and we lose the plot. So I'm curious how you feel as we go through these scenes. Barnes gives Paxton the signal, and then they try to basically overcome Mr. Reed, and instead Mr. Reed slashes Barnes's throat.
Yeah.
That happens. It's shocking. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting because this got set up in the sense that like the elder, played by Topher Grace, comes to the door and distracts Mr. Reed. So while he's gone, they try to get these matches there, and they get them and they take them down because they're trying to like send a smoke signal essentially. But what's so powerful, I think, about this scene is that Mr. Reed just comes down with them afterwards and grabs the last match and lights it for them. And as he's like talking to them and just like in a threatening, menacing way, he just is telling them like essentially what's going to happen. And then, yeah, they go through this whole sequence of them giving the signal to like slit his throat. And then it just doesn't go how they planned.
No, not at all. It does not go how they plan. Barnes dies. Barnes just dies right there. And we've officially entered the third act of the movie. This is where Reed removes an implant in Barnes's arm that is a contraceptive. Of course, I think an interesting little nugget of this movie for sure. Womanly autonomy.
Yeah.
And basically says that she's living in a simulation, which is something that this weird guy would say. I'll give him credit for that. It is very on brand.
Yeah, it really is. It's kind of wild. I thought during the scene he was trying to like cut an artery to make sure she really bled out, you know, and then like he ends up pulling out this little device, which Paxton calls out for what it actually is. So I thought that was kind of an interesting sequence there, but just didn't go how I anticipated. But honestly, like the second half of this movie didn't go how I was anticipating either.
Oh, really? Did you think it was going to go, like, which direction did you think it was going to go?
I thought we were going to get like more saw traps kind of things. I didn't think we'd be spending our whole time in one room. I thought we'd be going through.
That is so fascinating that you say that, because I did a trailer reaction video on my YouTube channel to the Heretic trailer the very first time. And I remember when the trailer first came out, I specifically said, and you could go check it out in the video, I said, this is going to be like a Saw movie. We are going to be getting torture chambers and torture traps.
That's what I thought we were getting. Because like the first thing that we see in the trailer is them having to choose between the belief and disbelief door. Like, oh, okay. So they're going to be like different paths, whatever they choose. They're going to have different things that they have to accomplish in order to get their freedom. Like that's what I thought I was going into. So I was surprised to find out that we were just staying in that one room for 50% of the movie. Like we didn't go anywhere else. I was like, oh, okay. Like I didn't dislike it. It just wasn't what I was anticipating.
It would make so much sense for this movie to go in the vein of a Saw, because the entire basis of those Saw films is that John Kramer chooses people that should feel bad about their decisions and their actions.
Yes.
And that totally falls in line with the thematic overbearings of this film of like, this is the world, the cult, the religion that you have chosen, and for that you shall be punished.
Yeah.
That is so interesting to me. That is, in my opinion, so much better than the direction that this movie does go. What happens next is interesting, but I think for me, like really strays away from what works about the movie and is like this takedown of how society views religion, and like that really in kind of a lofty thematic way and not necessarily in a practical way. This is where Paxton basically calls out Mr. Reed and is like, I know it was all staged. I know that this person is not actually resurrected. I know that you just moved the bodies. I know that there is like a chute under the table. There's a trap door that's hidden. And I know all of this is staged. And while I don't have like a inherently big issue with this, I think it's a little lame, to be honest, to be like, she figured it out. Like, I don't think there's anything really to figure out.
Yeah, I guess one thing I liked is like we saw her figuring it out, because she even says at one point, I don't know how you switched the bodies, but you did. And then he's like, cool, if you want to like check the wall for holes or doors, or like feel free, and then we kind of see her deduce like, okay, it couldn't have come from above. Let me check down here, like whatever. We see her go through all that. And like, so that made sense to me, where it wasn't automatically like, I know she came from under the table. It's like, she kind of figures it out, but I'm with you too. Like it just, I still just wanted the Saw movie, that's kind of what I wanted here.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I would have liked that much, much better. Reed basically then at this point says, look, you'll discover the one true religion and why, and like what all of this represents and stands for if you do go down this trapdoor, if you go downstairs. She does, closes the door behind her. This is where she, Paxton, finds a room of emaciated women in cages. The room has their bike locks on the doors. And this is where Paxton stabs Reed with the letter opener, and he stabs her back. And
Yeah.
it felt like Saw for a minute. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like, we're back to a very interesting, fascinating facet of Mr. Reed and like why he's keeping these women. And of course, it is to prove his point that religion is just one big idea to control you. And that is what it is. He is definitely the kind of guy that would put a woman in a cage, but like, I don't know. It didn't. I had already lost my intrigue in the prior scene, so this to me was just like another, like another rung on the ladder where it's like, we're really digging in here, aren't we?
Gotcha. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, for me, I think it worked in the sense that he was explaining like, okay, do you know what the one true religion is now?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's control. Like that's what the true religion is. It's just this desire to control everybody. There isn't any actual God or anything like that. Like there's no deity or anything along those lines. And then we get them, stabbing each other. And then the frustrating part for me, where like she goes back to the place that she started in, it's like, no, don't go there. Like, like he can still access that,
Yeah.
And then we kind of get their, I don't know, exchange or whatever they have. But the one thing before this I think was interesting is her going through all these rooms and then seeing the bike lock, because that was one part of like, did the elder not see their bikes outside? Like what's happening here? And then we realized like, oh, he went and moved the bikes and used the bike lock on that final door. So yeah, I don't know. For me, some of the callbacks, they were effective. They totally worked. I see where you're coming from though. 100%.
Yeah. I mean, they were effective for sure. And I love this idea of the bike locks being used not only in like a sinister manner, but in a like, this is what you've chosen. This is how religion has affected you. It has trapped you, and it is by your own design. And I think that is worth something for sure. Basically, Paxton and Reed, they stab each other. They're both bleeding out. Paxton goes back upstairs where Barnes is bleeding out and is basically just like praying. Yeah. It's like, I don't know why this is happening. And Mr. Reed goes to basically make a final blow to Paxton. Is like, I got to kill these girls. And Barnes is not dead. She herself resurrects and kills, not actually resurrects. I guess she just wasn't dead the whole time.
Yeah, she just passed out, I guess.
She just, passed out. Barnes kills Mr. Reed with a plank with nails on it. Of course, very symbolic of the crucifixion of Christ. Paxton escapes. A butterfly lands on her hand because earlier she's like, I'd love to be reincarnated as a butterfly.
Yeah.
And I thought this final, like, whatever it is, 10 minutes, 11 minutes, where Barnes kills Reed, I thought it was god awful. I thought it was just like, didn't work for me whatsoever.
It was the biggest bummer of the movie for me too, because I was just like, come on, like you can't have like, I know it's this Deus Ex Machina, like something comes in and saves the day, whatever. It's like, all right, but it's just,
but it takes all validity and like stakes out of what happened earlier in the movie.
Yeah, and it was interesting because like throughout the film, they weren't shy about like showing you the letter opener or the box of matches long before. Yeah, right. And like they did that with the stake, like where she puts it behind the pillar. It's like, okay, we're going to come back to that at some point. Got it. And then we're to the point where they're both bleeding out on the floor. It's like, well, why did you guys show us the stake then? Like nothing's going to happen with that. And then obviously it comes into play. It's like, oh, okay, like. I don't love that, but whatever. Like it's kind of a weird ending. Like, yeah.
I don't know, man. Like I'm just over shit like that in movies. Like I'm just like, I know, I got it. You guys are trying to be like, I didn't see that one coming, did you? And it's like, no, I don't know. And maybe that's like a thing for me where I'm just like, I don't like when horror movies do that. I just don't. It's too telegraphed for me. It's too unbelievable. And maybe part of the issue with Heretic is that it had so much interesting conversation to be had about religion and control and commercialized religion that like I just wanted to keep diving into that. And I thought they had a good grasp on that. And I thought like they kind of threw that away for like the gotcha side of the horror. That unfortunately does really fall in vain with A24. Is that the scene at the end that you had that you audibly you were like, you gotta be fucking kidding me?
It is, but not for the reason I think that you think. So I do have a question though for you though. Like, so
Tell me.
what were your thoughts on the butterfly scene? Did you hate it?
The butterfly scene?
Yeah.
Yeah, I rolled my eyes so hard.
What was your take on it though?
I don't know that, like, you know, we'll all live a better tomorrow. Like,
Okay.
so what if you're gonna die? Like, I take it as they both died, and like that was Barnes coming to Paxton and basically saying like it's okay to die. Like, we gave it our best shot, and you know what? Contrary to what we were raised to believe, you do reincarnate and you do have some autonomy over your next life.
Interesting. Okay, cool.
Did you not? You thought something totally different?
For me, she was just hallucinating because she was losing blood. So there was no butterfly.
Really?
She thought she saw a butterfly. Because then we cut back to her hand again and the butterfly's gone, but we don't see it fly away. So I was like, oh, she's hallucinating. She's about to die right now. And this is what happened in my theater. For anyone that's seen, I mean, it's spoiled already, so whatever, but I'm going to kind of go a walkthrough of what happened.
Okay.
Paxton is sitting there on the ground. A butterfly comes and lands on her hand, and we get a shot of it. Then we get a shot of Paxton looking at the butterfly, and then back to her hand showing the butterfly. We go back to Paxton, and the butterfly is gone. Then we go back to her hand, and the butterfly is gone. So that's why for me, it was just like, we were just saying like she's just hallucinating because she's about to die. Like there's no butterfly. It's just what she wants to happen. In between the two shots of her empty hand after we saw the butterfly, the person behind us audibly is just like, so is she dead? And then the movie ends like 5 seconds later. And I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding me, dude. Like, A, none of us know. We're all watching this movie for the first time. Who are you asking? Why are you talking? Like they were good the whole movie. I was so surprised that like nothing was ruined. Nobody was talking or anything. And I swear to God, it's like the last 5 seconds of the movie, right before it cuts to black. He's like, are they dead? Is she dead? And then we get one more shot of Paxton and then it cuts to black. I was like, you couldn't have waited like 5 seconds to ask your friend this question. Like it drove me I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me, man. Like this was such a good theater experience until that very last thing. It's like, yeah, man, she's dead. Like she hallucinated this. Like that, my interpretation anyway. It was like, that's what's happening here. You did it. You solved it. Great job. You put it together, man.
Brother.
Like you couldn't have done this in your head though. Like what the fuck is your problem? Man. Like why are you talking in a theater?
Wow.
Ugh.
Wow. Well, I'm sorry that this pod is going on hiatus and you won't be able to, talk about and vent about your terrible theater experiences. You almost had a perfect one.
Yeah. Feel free to DM me if you guys want to talk about Heretic some more at Benny Burrito everywhere. I'll give you all my thoughts on Heretic. I'll just long-winded thoughts.
Incredible.
I'll tell you about my mission, whatever you want to know. Yeah.
Yeah. Incredible content. Wow. Well, you know what? That moment should be my Truth Month. That guy in your theater. That should be
Is she dead? Yeah, you fuckhead. She's dead. Like, chill
is she
out.
dead guy?
Yeah.
I mean, it's unsurprising, and I don't really have anywhere else to go with this. So I'm taking the Jar Jar Binks Monopoly monologue.
Oh yeah, that's the way to go for sure. I'm going to go there with you because I also enjoyed, as someone who grew up in this religion and understands like what the quote unquote Book of Mormon is supposed to be, where it's like the second coming of Christ. Like there's all this stuff to it, but it's like in addition to the Bible. And so I loved that scene specifically where he slams down the Book of Mormon and then the Bob Ross Monopoly. He's like, and here's the fun version, like here's like the silly one. I was like, oh, that's actually pretty spot on. Like Bob Ross Monopolies make sense.
I did also really enjoy how they tied it to music. And they were like,
yes,
you've heard this song before, haven't you? You heard it 20 years earlier. I thought that was brilliant.
It was. What got me though was like, why didn't we get the Lana Del Rey song? We got the Radiohead song. We got the Hollies.
They probably too much money, too expensive.
I guess, yeah. It's just like, man, this really would have been a perfect song for the credits, like to go out on this or something. But that's picking nits at this point. But like, man, that really just would have like solved it all or just brought it all together. But
yeah, I would have sealed the deal. Tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, Heretic. Pretty good movie. Okay. A1 act for Hugh Grant. Here we go. Heretic, of course. 4 weddings and a funeral. 9 months. Sense and Sensibility. Notting Hill. Mickey Blue Eyes. Bridget Jones's Diary. About a Boy. 2 Weeks Notice. Love Actually. Music and Lyrics. The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Paddington 2. The Gentleman. And Wonka. That is what we've got here on the list.
Just the hits.
Just the hits. Yeah. Ben, do you want to know how many of these movies that I've seen?
I would love to know how many of these you've seen, other than Wonka, which I know you've seen.
Sure.
And Heretic.
Okay.
So you got 2.
Okay, so I've got 2. Wonka and Heretic is all I've seen on our short list. But let me go through this real fast.
Okay.
Unfrosted. I've seen Unfrosted.
What is
one
that?
One of the worst movies of 2024. It is the Jerry Seinfeld directed story of the Pop-Tarts.
Right. Yeah.
He plays a guy who plays Tony the Tiger, and it's atrocious. Shout out Hugh Grant for just catching paychecks wherever he can. So
Gotta do it.
That puts me at 3 movies. I mentioned Wonka already. Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. I've seen that film. Good time. It's fine.
Cool.
He was in that. That's 4. I've seen Glass Onion. He's in that movie for like 1 second, right?
Oh, that's right. Does he answer the door or whatever? He's like the boyfriend or something?
Yes. Yeah, he delivers a package to Daniel Craig. Yes. Okay. So that's great. That's like a quarter of a movie. Okay, so that's 5 Hugh Grant movies. 3 of which are from the past 2 years, which is not good. I've seen Cloud Atlas. We've talked about that on the Movie Draft podcast. That would be 6 movies.
You're famously out on Paddington, so you haven't seen Paddington 2.
I am famously out on a movie that I've never seen. Wow. I think that's going to do it for me.
6.
That is
like 5.1 because
it's like
Glass Onion does not really count, but yeah.
What if I chose Glass Onion for my?
Do it. I would love it. It was a good surprise to say the least when he showed up. Like, oh shit, that's Hugh Grant. Okay.
I've got nothing to lose. Fuck it. Yeah, sure. Glass Onion.
Glass Onion.
I don't give a shit.
He
was awesome. When I saw Glass Onion, I was like, cool. Hugh Grant. What a good guy.
Yeah. I think that's a great choice.
Yeah, that's cool.
For me, I'm gonna say too, the one I'm going to pick is just like one of my favorite rom-coms of all time, Notting Hill. I love that movie so much. I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy asking him to love her, like just one of the best lines ever. I love this movie. It's fantastic. But also I'm going to take the moment to shout out The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Of course.
I know Armie Hammer's in it, but if you can put that aside, it's a really good movie. It's awesome. So watch that movie.
That's like me every time I talk about The Last Black Man in San Francisco. I'm like, listen, I know Jonathan Majors is in it. Just don't worry about it.
Just forget about it.
Movie.
Yeah.
Totally. Okay, let's do our A24 ranking for Heretic. I kind of want you to go first. I'm curious what you're going to rank this movie.
As we talked about it, I think I come to the conclusion that it has an A+ first half and a C+ second half for me. Okay. So I think it just makes sense to give it a B+.
Sounds fair.
I think that's what I'm going to go with.
Sounds appropriate. Sounds right. Okay.
If this had been the Saw movie, I could see this being an A for me. For sure. If they had done more like religious based traps and shit like that, like, I would have loved it.
Yeah. When are we getting the religious themed Saw? Is that Saw 11? Like, what are we looking at?
Maybe.
Here?
Yeah, it'd be sweet.
Dude, that'd be sick. God, I'm so excited for Saw 11. Don't even tempt me with a good time. I'm really pro Saw 10. For this movie, let's see. I gave it 4 stars. I think it's like a perfectly adequate religious horror movie. It is not super high up in my A24 ranking, I don't think. So I'll probably go with I will go with a C+.
Okay.
I'll go with a C+. I think that the ending really falls apart for me and loses a lot of rewatchability because of the kind of path that it chooses to go. But I do think like you said, the first half is like really, really, really good stuff. And it just kind of loses its steam. So yeah, C+. I don't see myself revisiting Heretic anytime soon. And I don't know, come next October, come spooky season, am I going to want to rewatch Heretic? I don't know. You know?
I just hope the Monopoly monologue is on YouTube by that point, because I'll rewatch that.
Sure. Yeah.
Nonstop. That shit is
absolutely great. That's worth watching for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah. Okay. Any closing thoughts on Heretic, on Monopoly boards? Anything?
You can be religious, just don't be an asshole. That's all I ask. Nice.
I think that is a great message to walk away from.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can be religious, just I don't know. Don't enter strange men's homes.
Yeah,
it's probably a really good rule of thumb. Next week on the pod, it will be our final pod before we do disband for a little bit of a hiatus. we're going to be doing A24 at the Oscars. So we're not completely abandoning the Oscars and awards season. We're just going to kind of take a look forward at where we're at the end of November, what the Academy Awards look like for A24, some predictions, just kind of have a big broad conversation about that, and then take off for a few months.
Be awesome. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a good way to go out for the year. So, let us know what you guys thought about Heretic. What's your favorite Hugh Grant movie that Ethan should watch? And why is it Love Actually?
It's probably a good thing. Hit me up. Give me Hugh Grant watch list suggestions, please.
Just watch Wonka again. That's all everyone's going to tell you. Watch Wonka one more time.
God, he's so fucking bad in that movie. He's
intentionally.
So bad.
It's a crazy role. Yeah, it's perfect.
Don't get me started.
Let us know on Twitter, Instagram at 24 minutes of A24. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube, where you can watch us talk about these A24 projects. We appreciate everyone's support, and we look forward to next week and then taking a little break and coming back. So thank you, everyone. I am Ben Lawhorn.
And I am Ethan Simi. Spring break forever, bitches.